Hey, howdy, hey. Welcome to episode 3 of Regenerative Farming News with me, Heather Heinrichs, a former journalist turned farmer. I hope you watched and enjoyed the video that I recommended last week of Alan Savory's TED Talk. His short explanation of how we can reverse desertification is incredible and always inspires me to hope for the future. The biggest annual farm event held every year in Saskatchewan, Ag in Motion. This event is typically geared towards tillage and chemical farming, but this year, there's a spark of hope. This week I also interviewed Steve Kenyon, a regenerative rancher from the Edmonton area who has been using holistic practices for over 25 years and has seen the results shown in tests on his land and neighbor's soil that prove the power of regenerative farming. Before we get started, I have some news about the show. I've started a Facebook page for the podcast where I'll be posting about regenerative farming news throughout the week, and I'll be able to post visual content to add to what you hear about here on the podcast. The page is titled Regenerative Farming News, with the same logo you see here on the podcast. Feel free to leave comments and chat with me about the show over on Facebook. I'd love to hear from you. Tell me what you like about the show and what topics you'd like me to cover. In the news this week is the biggest farm event of the year, Ag in Motion. Held annually near Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, this event is where big farming companies showcase things like new sprayers and tillage equipment, along with GMO crops. But this year, someone has started promoting regenerative farming. A large farm company called Johnston's Grain promoted their new regenerative products that help reduce fertilizer inputs. Using soil testing, they are now telling farmers to reduce their fertilizer and add their biological fertilizer, like worm castings. The article says that the company was testing a field for a farmer, and when they told him to lower his fertilizer by 85%, the farmer's agronomist, quote, damn near fell out of his chair. The farmer split the field and tested the new method. He saw a 23% yield increase on the side where he used less fertilizer and added the worm castings. Let's back up a bit and look at this in a big picture way. Farmers have been using chemical fertilizer for many decades, and it's generally accepted that you put on exactly the amount that your local agronomist tells you to put on. This agronomist may or may not test your farm soils, and they are also typically paid by the fertilizer companies, not the farmer. The big chemical companies who hire agronomists will charge the farmers a fee for the agronomist to visit their farm, so the farmer does pay for the visit, but the agronomist depends on the chemical company for their paycheck. Every smart employee knows that making money for your company keeps you in job security. Agronomists are essentially paid to sell chemical inputs, and their end goal is to sell the farmer as much chemical, fertilizer, and GMO seeds as they possibly can. This is because the main belief system in farming is that your maximum yield on your farm is determined by how much rain you get and how much fertilizer you put on, and nothing else. So what we have to understand here is that farmers are by and large very trapped and convinced by so-called, quote, experts to push the limits of chemical inputs on their farms. So much so that farmers have been putting on way more fertilizer than their plants can even use. So now, when a chemical input company like Johnston's Grain is changing direction and telling farmers to reduce inputs, it sounds crazy. Even Johnston's themselves say on their website, quote, these ideas may sound complicated and maybe even crazy to begin with, end quote. Convincing farmers that it's even possible to farm with less inputs is the biggest challenge right now. Johnston's is now selling biological inputs like worm castings and other, what they say are, biostimulants. So they are finding a way to make money on regenerative farming principles. This is not necessarily a bad thing. Although farmers don't need worm castings to regenerate their land, this is one way to make the switch easier for farmers. They are so used to driving around and spreading fertilizer and spraying weeds. This way, at least they can still feel like they are using inputs, but it's a natural organic input that does work with regenerative principles. Agronomists that work for the big companies are not going to like this, but it's encouraging to see the word regenerative being used at the biggest farm show of the year. The more mainstream that regenerative farming becomes, the better. My hope is that this will lead to more farmers switching to no-till farming, multi-species crops, and cover crops. This is exciting to see the movement gaining some traction. I've been to the Ag in Motion farm show a few years ago, and I've been watching the news for quite a few years, but this was my first time hearing about this company, Johnston's Grain. I looked up their website and was excited to find that not only are they offering new products to assist farmers in regenerating their land, but the company actually has a large plan for pushing regenerative farming forward. I'll be keeping an eager eye on their regenerative farming newsletter. If you are a farmer in Western Canada, I highly recommend that you sign up for their newsletter as well. You can find it on their website, johnstonsgrain.com. Look for the regenerative link at the bottom of the homepage. It's time for your tip of the week. For the consumers out there, there is a lot you can do to encourage the shift towards regenerative farming. The next time you're at a restaurant, ask them if they have any food that is locally sourced. Restaurants could make a big impact if they were able to buy meat and vegetables from local farms. You can still order and eat whatever you want, but businesses will be much more likely to look at local food if the customers are asking for it. If you know a restaurant that already does this, go there more often and make sure you let them know that you're buying from them because they are buying locally grown food. And the tip of the week for farmers is very similar. Can your regenerative farm connect with local restaurants or businesses? Bison Ridge Farms that I interviewed in my second episode have their own cafe in the city where they also sell products from their farm. Maybe you can open a store too, or maybe you can connect with a local business and partner with them in selling from your farm. Maybe you need to get a label maker and put regenerative and locally grown on your products. Building up networks between local farms and local stores is the diversity that our local economies need to thrive. The closer you can get to your customers, the better. And now it's time for the interview of the week. Steve Kenyon, owner of Greener Patches Ranching from near Edmonton, Alberta, had a chat with me about his experience with regenerative ranching. It was a great conversation. I must apologize for the change in sound quality. I had an issue with the recording, and this was the best I could get it to sound. Let's dive in.
Why don't we get started with tell me where you're from and how you got into regenerative farming.
Okay, my name's Steve Kenyon, and my company is called Greener Pastures Ranching Ltd. And we are located northwest of Edmonton, Alberta. Started up here, when did I first fly up here? In 1999. Originally I'm a Saskatchewan boy, but that's where my family farm is, but moved up here. And it was just before that, I kind of got introduced to holistic resource management back then, it was called. Went to a seminar, and Alan Savory was speaking, and it just, something clicked. Something made a lot of sense that college did not address. He was talking about the water cycle was broken, and how we're exporting topsoil and we're degrading ecosystems, and I'm like, why did I not hear any of this at 3 years of ag college? Didn't make sense. And I got involved with a holistic group back then. It was called the Devon Club around Lloydminster, and they were just amazing. Dennis Wabasser, Don Campbell, a couple of my huge mentors that I've been leaning on for many, many years. And they were just amazing, and kind of took me under their wing and gave me some advice, and it was it's been a lifelong learning ever since then, I tell you.
Wow. Okay, so yeah, you went to a seminar, you heard stuff that made sense that you'd never heard from anywhere before. That really sounds like pretty typical still for nowadays. It's not really taught.
It's coming around compared to 10 or 15 years ago, right? It's got a lot more momentum now. There's some professors at universities and colleges that are understanding this. I mean, they're still kind of handcuffed by the everything that goes on with big industry at colleges and universities.
Right.
But some of the professors actually understand this and are promoting it. I've had a few of them out at my ranch, and it's refreshing to know that there's a few good ones out there that are promoting it.
Oh, excellent. Some progress is being made. That's fantastic.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, a lot different than, like I said, 15 years ago. I was like, pulling my fingernails out just to try and get people to understand what we're doing here.
So you said you're up north of Edmonton. And what do you farm up there? What animals do you have on your ranch?
Okay, so our ranch is set up a little differently than most. I had a cow herd many years ago, and I took a course. It was called Ranching for Profit, and I learned how to do gross margin analysis and did the numbers on my cows, and I was losing money on them, and it didn't make sense. I'm like, I thought I was doing everything right. So we went into custom grazing. So I sold my cow herd and just started custom grazing, and I've been doing that ever since. So we don't actually own the cattle, and we don't own the land that we graze on. We do own a little bit of land, but most of our pastures that we're grazing on is all privately leased land. So I would describe it more like a private community pasture, where I bring in multiple different customers and we graze in multiple different pastures. So the setup's a little bit different than most farms, not traditional. Now, sometimes we keep animals through the winter as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we calve them out. Sometimes we don't. Just depends on the customers and the year.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, we did buy a small flock of sheep. We have some hair sheep, but they're still managed the same way. The pasture that we have now, it's 100 acres. Fence with page wire, and we've got 22 paddocks already made it into it.
Wow.
And we're doing a rotation around. We don't have enough sheep yet for it, so there's actually some cattle with it as well. So we've got a bit of a flirt going over there.
Yes. Yeah, well, and I've heard that that's another benefit with regenerative tactics is to intermix your species, because it helps break up pest cycles and things like that as well.
Yeah, it also helps with animal impact a little bit. I've got a friend of mine that always suggests that every herd you have out there, every herd of cattle, you should throw in a few horses. I don't know if you've ever seen horses or donkeys. Our donkey does the same thing, mixed in with cows. There's always one species that's superior, and they think they're superior and they act superior. So what they do is they purposely run right through the middle of the other herd. And that causes increased animal impact.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, basically the horses are jerks, right? They'll purposely run right through the middle of the cows to disrupt them, but that's, maybe it's nature's way. All of a sudden you get a bunch of, a tiny little stampede that influences the ground better.
Wow.
Cows will do it with the sheep. I've seen it. Pigs and sheep together, same thing. One group gets more, is superior and causes better, stimulation to the soil. We actually had a llama a few years ago. I nicknamed him my herd effector. Animal impact and herd effect are two terms that are kind of, you can interchange them. So my herd effector, he was just a jerk, and he would just run right through the middle of the cows and make them move. So it was funny to watch him, but he loved his cows, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I never would have thought of that, of being something that you'd want to encourage on your farm as something that impacts the soil, but it makes sense as soon as you say it, of course. To the regenerative aspect of everything, I'm curious now, since you've been doing it for so long, what's the difference you've seen on your land?
Oh, land has improved tremendously over the years. Really, it's about carbon, which, years ago we called it holistic grazing, we called it sustainable management. The term regenerative has just come in the last 10 years or something, so I'm not stuck on what it's called. My management hasn't changed that much. I mean, I'm hoping I'm getting better at it, but originally it's the same idea. It's letting your plants grow, giving them rest, not letting them not letting them be overgrazed, of building ecosystems, right, repairing the water cycle. It's all the same stuff I was doing 25 years ago. But really it comes down to getting that water cycle fixed and then harvesting more sunlight by doing that. And I didn't know really what was happening underground until probably about 10 years ago.
Oh.
I heard Dr. Christine Jones talk about the liquid carbon pathway. And I heard this term called exudation. I'm like, what the heck is that? Nobody ever talked to me about exudation before. So when, photosynthesis, the plants are taking carbon out of the air, right? We're bringing it in. Well, the plant then takes that, turns it into glucose, takes that carbon, pushes it down into the root system, and then spits it out the root tips and feeds the biology, right? All of a sudden now we got living biology in the soil. And in the meantime, that carbon is going in and building your soil. The key is to keep that happening as much as possible. And the term is carbon sequestration, right? The whole world right now is focused on reducing emissions, right? That's how they're trying to battle carbon. No, right? That's only half the equation, right? Carbon sequestration is the other half. If you want to be carbon neutral, right? Like everybody's out there trying to be carbon neutral. All these companies are trying to do a research project and then, figure out at one point of the carbon cycle how they're reducing emissions. And then they're bragging about it and marketing it, that they're doing a good job. Okay? But most of these companies, let's say, as an example, an airline company, okay, they're going to be carbon neutral by 2050.
Yeah.
No, they're not. How can you? They're only doing half the equation. You can reduce your emissions as much as you can. You're still emitting.
Yeah.
Right? The other half of the math equation is sequestering carbon. So to be carbon neutral, you need to sequester more carbon than you emit.
Yeah.
Pretty simple, right? They can't. There's very few industries on the planet that have the ability to sequester carbon. Agriculture happens to be one of them. Is agriculture carbon neutral? Not even close.
No.
As a whole, not even close. No. Is a regenerative farm carbon neutral?
Even more.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
Quite possibly. We did it was an online study, not nothing, peer reviewed or anything fancy like that, but we did an online calculator. It took us all day to go through it. I put in the batteries we use, the fuel we burn, the firewood we burn, all the land we graze, the forested areas we have, and all, the vehicles we use, everything. It came out at the end, our farm, which is regeneratively managed, was 94% sequestration and 6% emissions.
Wow.
So to be carbon neutral, it's 50-50. Right? So I don't care how, if I could be off by 25% on that calculator. We're still beyond carbon neutral. We had a study by the University of Alberta come out. The whole study was actually all across the prairies. We were one of 30 locations. But I really like my data. I made sure that they sent me my data. So what happened was they picked two fields. It was my field and then a neighbor's field that was it was actually kitty corner, so they were touching. The difference in them, so history was very similar. This land is gray-wooded soil, which basically it was developed under leaf litter, so it was forest years ago. And I'm going to say 50 years ago plus, it was bulldozed and then continuously grazed forever. The difference between these two pieces was 15 years before the study was completed. I took over managing one. So one of them continued to be continuously grazed, and then I started an advanced grazing system on my side. So at the end of the study, it shows that the continuously grazed field, so the control, was 5.2% soil organic carbon. Okay, and after 15 years of my management, our soil organic carbon was up to 11%.
Wow.
Okay, like doubled.
Wow.
Doubled. And not to mention that's just the percentage. Visually, when you looked at that soil sample, when we put a plug down, they took meter deep soil samples. On the control, the continuous grazing field, there was virtually nothing. It was all the same color. You couldn't see a difference where that AH rise was. They actually measured it and found it and determined what the AH layer was, but you couldn't visually see it. On my land, you could easily, it was a very dark, distinct difference. We had black topsoil on our gray wooded soil.
Wow.
And the average depth out of all those samples they took, which I think they took 15 or 20 samples, the average depth of that AH horizon was 10.8 inches.
Wow.
So literally we grew 10.8 inches of black topsoil in 15 years.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It was really cool. And I didn't really realize that was happening. I was just doing what, holistic management was telling me to do years ago.
Yeah.
And so something else that happens, right, when we get that, all of a sudden we get water holding capacity. All that topsoil is now a sponge to hold on to water. And there's also the biology in the soil. They like to balance out carbon to nitrogen. You've heard of the carbon-nitrogen ratio?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? So in the soil, the biology wants to balance it out at 24 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the more carbon I get, all of a sudden that biology is pulling nitrogen for free out of the atmosphere and making it available in my soil for my plants. So the difference in these two fields, the total nitrogen available in the continuous grazed one was 2.74 tons per hectare. Okay, in my land, it's now up to 4.22 tons per hectare.
Wow.
So almost double the nitrogen in the soil too.
And so how did you get into teaching people about this? How did that all start?
Was never my intention. Some people just, started hearing about what I was doing and thinking it was kind of cool, and they'd ask me to come speak at a seminar or be on a farmer panel at a conference, and it just grew from there. All of a sudden, someone said, "Well, you think you could teach a one-day school for us? Because we've got a bunch of producers that want to learn." So I'm like, "Sure." And then it went into a 2-day school and a 3-day school, and I just do seminars all over. We're actually going to Wisconsin here in August, and I'm taking the family with me. So.
Oh, interesting. What's happening in Wisconsin? Is it something that you're teaching at, or is it a bigger event and you're one of several speakers?
Yeah, it's just 3 sessions they're bringing me down for, and we're going 3 different pasture walks.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, across Wisconsin in that area there. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. I usually get to go to places in the wintertime, so all I see is hotel and airports. But it's nice to go down in the summer once in a while and get to see the country when it's actually growing in greens.
Why do you think it's so important that we go this route?
Because everything's connected, right? We have, health, human health, animal health, soil health, plant health. It's all connected. It's all intertwined. Agriculture, modern agriculture, looks at one part and tries to control it. They try and manage it. They try and manipulate it. When we have to look at things as a whole. Even just within the farm, there's so many different ecosystems that interact. There's so many different parts to it. How the animals, interact with the plants and interact with the soil and the riparian areas, and we can go beyond that, and it goes into human health as well. Right, having healthy microbiomes on the plants that we're eating, right? And those microbiomes get to us, and our health gets better. So it's a whole system. If the food we're eating is grown in dead soil, right, with lacking micronutrients, well, it's not really healthy food. So as we build up healthy ecosystems and healthy soil, have microbiology in the soil to get the micronutrients that we need, then the food's healthier and the people are healthier. And it's just this whole system that works together. And we need to, I don't want to say educate the population, but maybe they need to educate themselves. We have to put the information out there so that they crave it. Right? The best way to get this moving is through them. The only way for this movement to happen is to get our passionate urban, millennials and all those groups that get so passionate about stuff to understand that this is important. And then they vote with their grocery shopping dollar.
If you could summarize regenerative farming really short, like in one sentence, to explain it to a consumer who maybe is a bit confused about it, doesn't know quite what it is? If you could tell somebody, hey, this is what regenerative is, how would you explain it to them?
That's my airplane talk. I always sit next to somebody on the airplane, and they question what I do, and then I say, have you ever heard of regenerative agriculture? And they're like, nope. Okay, so here's my quick, easy explanation of what regenerative agriculture is. Modern agriculture grows plants from the soil. Okay, it's a mindset change. Regenerative agriculture grows soil from the plants.
And that is truly what regenerative farming is. It's growing soil instead of damaging it and putting carbon back in the earth where it belongs and reversing climate change. Well, that's everything I have for you for this week. I hope you enjoyed the show. And again, please go find the Facebook page, comment, tell me all your thoughts. I want to hear from you. Share the show with your friends, your family. Everybody needs to know about this. We all need to support putting the carbon back in the soil. I hope you have a great week, and we'll talk again soon.